Hello everyone. We will start out the session in a few minutes, just waiting for more attendees to dial in. We'll be back in 1 or 2 minutes. All right, let's start. Hello and welcome to Wacom Comic Week on this lovely Wednesday morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on where you are joining us. Thank you for joining us today on the third day of our online comics and creativity event brought to you by Wacom and Clip Studio Paint. We have a great session waiting for you today with the exceptionally talented Ilse Harting.
Hello.
But before we jump into the presentation, let me share with you some of the basic housekeeping rules. Nothing fancy, nothing big, just some of the small details. The session is going to last roughly 1 hour, maybe longer, we will see. And we will have some time for answering the questions you might have towards the end. With so many of you in the room, we probably won't be able to answer all the questions, but we will do our best. When sending your questions, please use the Q&A function of Zoom for your questions about the presenter and the presented content. For technical issues like the screen share not functioning, or if you're having trouble with the audio, please use the chat box. We will keep an eye on the both. But if you want your question to be seen and addressed, Q&A is the right direction for you to go. This session is being recorded and it will be available on Wacom YouTube page next week. You will also receive an email next week with links, additional information, and a special offer from our sponsor, Clip Studio Paint. Inside our follow-up email, there will be a survey link, and those of you who click and fill in that survey within the 2 weeks time period will have a chance to win one of the 100 Clip Studio Paint Pro 3-month tutorial licenses. If you are new to Zoom, please do check out the gallery view and the speaker view options to find the best viewing experience for yourself. Just click around freely. You cannot break anything, we hope. You can also adjust the slider between the screen share and the camera feeds to find the ideal setting for your viewing pleasure. So a brief summary of who we are. For those of you who don't know Wacom, we've been around for almost 40 years pioneering digital pen input technology, which means every time you need to work or create on a computer and realize that the mouse trackpad or the keyboard is not going to do the job, you might want to switch to a Wacom tablet and use the digital pen. And for the rest of you who know us, it's so nice to see you all here again. This session is brought to you by Clip Studio Paint, and those of you who have been following our online sessions in the past few months are already very familiar with our growing partnership with Clip Studio Paint. And I will let Joanna do the introduction.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here again for this online session. So for those of you who are not familiar with Clip Studio Paint, it's a very versatile graphics software best suited for drawing and painting to create a wide range of content. And with its wealth of unique features, it helps to create anything from illustration over comics, concept art, and animation. No matter if you're a professional or a hobbyist, Clip Studio Paint's natural drawing feel, along with its comic features, is loved by artists worldwide and definitely a good tool for everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joanna. And now into the advertising. We have a special offer for you. And if you visit our eStore page, estore.wacom.com/comicweek, you can discover the full range of our exclusive offers for those of you who attend our Comic Week sessions. A wide range of Wacom products, including the Wacom Cintiq Pro, Wacom Cintiq, Intuos Pro, and Mobile Studio Pro, are waiting for you with up to 20% discount. So just visit the eStore after the event is over, or you can take a screenshot of this page if you don't want to forget the link. and just and then you can see all the details. Time to start. Today we have Ilse Harting with us. She's a freelance illustrator based in Netherlands, and she's drawing paintings and illustrations using Photoshop and Clip Studio Paint, and her focus is on character-based design. And without further ado, and there has been a lot of ado, let's listen to our presenter. You can share your screen and start, Ilse.
All right, screen one. Share. Does everyone see my screen correctly?
Yes, we do.
Yes, you do. All right. Can everyone hear me fine as well?
Yes.
Just checking if everything is working. All right, I see a lot of
Loud
yeses.
and clear.
Yes, I also saw so many people are up really, really late for this session. It's such a why? Why would you do that? You need your sleep. Okay, I guess I'll just start with a small introduction. My name is Ilse Harting. Like owner already told you guys, I'm based in the Netherlands, and I'm an illustrator for a few years now. I actually went to animation school before deciding to go into illustration instead. But in the last year, just before I wanted to do, I had to do the final course on animation and graduate in animation. I asked my team if I was allowed to do an internship into game design instead of animation. And luckily I was allowed to do so because that showed me that I was way more interested in illustration and concept art than I was in animation. So it's kickstarted my career into illustration for games. I'm currently working for a couple mobile game companies here and overseas. I've created for board games, and I'm currently working on an indie game that's about to be announced next year, alongside some personal projects. So that's mainly my introduction regarding work. And for my personal work, as you can see on my screen, it's very female. I like to draw girls a lot. It's there's nothing deep behind it. My interest in those just didn't grow past me being 12 and wanting to draw a lot of girls. And I like it that way. I don't mind. I just like cutifying them. I grab a small moment in time and make an illustration around it, whatever it may be, something smaller and cutified. And that's what I like to do. My setup, like I said, I used Photoshop and I use Clip Studio Paint. I also used my Wacom Intuos Pro. I've had it for about 4 years now. And before that, I had another Wacom for another 6 years, and that one lasted me through all of art school. So it can take a hit and a fall and drinks and food. So pretty sturdy thing. And now that that's out of the way, I would like to start with explaining a little bit of what I'm planning to do for this session. I'm going to explain the mental steps and process I went through to get to the end result of this illustration, starting from the very beginning of getting the brief from Clip Studio Paint themselves. They gave me this amazing opportunity to draw for their next campaign, and I wanted to showcase to you how the inner workings of that works, basically, is what I'm trying to say. So first things first, let's head into it. When Clip Studio Paint asked me to make the illustration, they had sort of vision for what the illustration was going to be. They wanted a very bright mood, something very cheerful. It needed to be a girl, colorful, something right up my alley. So I was happy. And of course, there are also technical requirements, sort of delivery formats and dimensions. And next to the do's of an illustration, they also sent me a few don'ts. So I was, for example, not allowed to do very extreme angles, not too many dark colors, and there are like quite some restrictions, but nothing that would impede on my creativity. It was still like completely free on what direction I wanted to go in with. So once I got my brief, I had to decide how I wanted to go work about this. And I wanted to quickly explain to you 2 methods of illustrating that I do. that I decide at the beginning of an illustration which approach I'll be taking. And these are two illustrations. One is for Clip Studio Paint and one is a personal project of mine. To me, the two different directions I take in illustration is either the bottom one for Clip Studio Paint is very experimental and flowy. I try to not bog down too much on the first initial idea. I don't let myself get locked down by any ideas. It's if I decide I want a completely different color palette in the middle of an illustration, I just take it. If it looks better, I'll do it. It's much more free flow and ideas built upon other ideas, etc. So it's way more playful. And I thought that the Clip Studio Paint illustration, especially for a painterly style, it's perfect to have this mindset for an illustration like this. As long as if you make bigger changes to the illustration once it has been approved of by your client, check in with them to see if they like those ideas. Otherwise, you might go into directions they don't want you to go. But otherwise, this is a really nice technique for a painterly style. The other technique is a bit more steadfast, a bit more straightforward. At the top one, as you can see, I knew these characters exist and they have a specific color palette. So if a client comes to you and tells you, yeah, I want you to draw this character, here is a reference of him, and here's the color palette. Please color pick just the colors of it. And I wanted this pose and this angle and this lighting and this. It's like very clearly written out for you what you need to do. Then this is a way easier way to get there. Make every point, every step in the process very clear to the client, so they know what they want. And for Clip Studio Paint, it felt a lot more free and playful. So that's the direction I chose for this illustration. So next up, before I even start on an illustration like this, I always go for a very simple mood board. You don't need to get many references, but for me it was important to just get a few, because I had a feeling of wanting a summary sort of sunset-like feeling. Had to be cheerful, colorful, but also a bit more subdued, not too pop colorful. And these were the references I found that worked perfectly for me. And you don't have to do this. I like to have a starting off point in where I have something that works and go from there, start coloring in that direction. It just helps you in those empty white canvas moments in where you're like, oh, I don't know what colors to use. So this helps. Even if later on, like within the next 50 minutes, you go in a completely different direction color-wise, and you discard any of these references, that's fine. Then it was a starting off point that helps you gear up into the illustration. So with that out of the way, let's start with the actual illustration. Sorry about that. So the first initial sketch I made was extremely rough. I didn't want to get too deep into the anatomy and the rightness of it. I just drew a simple sketch of a girl holding her headphones, looking at the camera, all cheeky and winky like, and the idea is clear. It's a clear sketch. And the first thing I always do right after I have a sketch is just pick a very basic background color. In this case, it's just a gradient, like really simple gradient, because I personally find it really hard to start coloring a character if it's not based in an environment, even if that environment is just a few color gradations. It just helps you visualize how the character will be influenced by the type of coloring you've chosen for the background. If the background was like a dark blue, that character would be in a completely different environment by default. So that's the first thing I always immediately do. And as you might have noticed, the colors of the background are like an immediate reference from this reference, the sky. I like the colors of the sky, so I just grabbed those and I was like, yeah, I'll work with those. And then I grabbed a very rough brush and I went to town with coloring. These are very rough colors, but it gives you the overall sense of the direction I'm going with, blonde girl, white shirt, pink glossy lips, etc. And it already fits somewhat in the mood I've been setting with the background. However, the black lines sort of clash with the pastel-y color as I'm going for, so I needed to get rid of those. Sorry for that. And that's why I make my lines. I set my lines on multiple or overlay because it sort of makes the colors underneath pop through way better. It sort of strengthens the colors that I've chosen underneath. However, I duplicate my lines because if you only have one line art layer in overlay, especially if you're working with very light colors like I've done here, the line art sort of becomes too light. So just to get a slightly stronger effect, I duplicate that one line. So double the overlay layers for the sketch to get this look that I have now. And for me, this is a quick setup in which I later can start painting with. I already have some gradations of orange that I can use for her hair. It's a nice setup for a painterly style later on. And then it's time to set up some of the concepting for the background. I made a very suggested a background of water in the background. And I went with pink grass in the beginning, but later on changed that because it was looking too magical, and I just wanted to ground it a bit more in reality. It needed to be cute and eternal, but not magical per se, in my opinion. And then I started working on the foreground. These are like really, really simple layouts of what I think I want. And it's clear to the viewer, okay, these are supposed to be flowers, but they are like really basic. What I do, for example, is Clip Studio Paint has a feature that's called lasso fill. And that's like, I love it when I found out about it. It's you can make a design of like, okay, a plant or an outline of a plant is what I'm trying to say. And it just immediately fills up a plant, and you can start moving it around and change sizes, place them, flip them horizontally, place them somewhere else, and quickly mock up what you intend to do. And then you have a sketch of your environment, basically. It's sketching the environment without lines. I don't like using lines for my background, especially when I'm jumping straight into colors. And then the last thing I added was a very quick lighting setup. I knew I was going for a backlit setup, lighting setup, sorry, because it's always looking so dreamy and cute, and I thought it would perfectly fit this illustration. So that's what I went for. And this is actually the final result I sent to Clip Studio Paint, the sketch phase, for them to judge if they like the direction, the colors, the mood. And since they will be judging more the mood and the vibes of the illustration, it really didn't matter that the anatomy was like off, and there are probably way more things off about this illustration. The point is that the idea is clear for them to start judging. And alongside this one, I also sent another illustration that will never be shown, which is this illustration. It's especially for a client that doesn't necessarily know exactly what they want yet, or it's better to send a few versions. In this case, I just sent two with the same. That needed to be a girl, needed to be cute, needed to be cheerful and colorful, but in different directions of color palette. So this one was meant to be a very warm, inviting sunset type, and this is more an eternal, angelic, bluish vibe and blue purple palette. So they had the choice to work with either of those, and they chose this one to go forward with. So that's the first phase of this process, deciding the mood and everything. So next up, when I got the go-ahead, I started to focus on all the ideas that I had needed to be solidified. So first things, references again, especially for items you don't know. It's funny. I was searching so hard for a reference for headphones and getting the right angle. I spent so long on trying to find it, And it's like, why can I not find it? It's so bothersome. Please let me just on Pinterest, by the way. And at some point I realized I'm a girl and I have headphones and I have a mirror and a phone. I could have just taken a picture of my own setup to get the right reference, but I don't know, I had a brain fart that day for some reason, I think. So that one came later. I already found my reference and I used that one instead. So don't feel bad for having to look up references in between. It's part of the process, especially if you all of a sudden have to draw items or objects you've never drawn before. Don't feel bad about that. You can't know everything. So then first step would be, let me just go back a little. This is the rough setup I had right after. I just did a little bit of basic painting, like what I told you about the setup I had at first with just the line art peeking through. That way I can now finally like pick the line art and start setting up some of the shadows. Really go in there just to give it a slight more 3D effect. It doesn't have to be, again, it doesn't have to be clean or clear. It just needed to get to the next stage, to the next painting stage, basically. And once I had that, and it was about cleaning up more the silhouette, cleaning up the silhouette. I just grabbed the lasso tool and oh, before everything, sorry, backtrack. I merged everything in one layer, except the light layer. I do not like to have too many layers. So the sketch, the overlay sketch lines, the colors underneath, the whole girl is one big layer. I just like it that way. If I want something loose again, I'll just lasso tool it and get it out of there again and start painting. But if it doesn't need to be loose, it's in one layer. I don't want to get confused or anything. And so that's why I do. And the reason why I don't have the lights on the same layer is because usually, especially with a playful process like this, the lights can change drastically. If I, for example, wanted to quickly change to a moonlit instead of sunset, then the light needed to be bluish in color instead of warm like the sun. And if it's on a different layer, I can way easily change those colors instead of having them baked into the original painting. So that's what I do. I didn't know exactly yet what rendering type I was going for. What I did know was that I wanted the hair to feel almost like clay in a way. I really don't like very hairy like rendering, like extreme realistic hair rendering. It needed to be a bit more, it needed to look 3D, but it didn't look, needed to look real, is what I'm going for. And some anatomy mistakes. I made her look at the viewer a little more, made her smile a little cheekier, and it's basically a very natural process of working a little here, working a little there, and getting to a somewhat neat result. So next up, I wanted to talk about something. This looks technical, but it really isn't. I just think it's important to quickly talk about it. Let's see. Let me grab a brush real quick. Yeah. So what you see here are the ranges of values I used for each color palette. So this is her shirt, this is her hair, and the last one is her skin. And as you can see, there is almost no range. Like I have no extreme heights in light, and I know extreme darks in my colors because I wanted to keep everything somewhat in the middle zone, the pastel-y middle zone, and I didn't need any lights because the lights obviously are on a different layer. The only places, oh, sorry for this. The only places where I did use a darker shadow, like these colors you see here, are in the very crevices of an illustration. So places where it's really dark, where shadows overlap each other, and I think it's called ambient occlusion in realistic terms. It's a place where shadows are very deep because no light is almost hitting it. However, I'm breaking some of those rules because those shadows also bleed into actual line art at some point. So I'm pretty sure I'm breaking a rule there, but I don't mind. It works for the illustration style I'm going for. Next up, I want to quickly show you a setup I did to get a slightly different values, because her hair is orange, but she's sitting under a blue sky. So all the top planes of her hair needed to reflect the sky a little bit. And it didn't need to be exactly blue. It's not like I grabbed blue and started painting in blue. This color, as you can see on its own, is still pretty beige. It's not even blue. But next to the orange, in itself, it looks more blue. So that's why you have like a slight value change, even though it's still supposed to be clearly ginger orange hair. So thinking about where does the light or environment reflection come from, decides which planes of the hair change color. I hope that's I hope I explained it right. And after that, I had a problem. I was looking at the illustration and I didn't like the colors anymore. So this is what I mean with, okay, at some point you might look at your illustration and think, okay, there's something wrong. I can't, I'm not vibing with it. I didn't like the orangey colors as much anymore. And her white shirt just made her like blend way back into the background. So what I did, I made a few variations of colors for this to get back into what other colors could work well for this. And the way I did this, I'm going to show you, is through gradient maps. Let me first close all these happy things. Okay, if you want to make a gradient map, grab a lasso tool and select it. Oh, I don't know why Clip Studio Paint is being slow right now. I'm sorry. And you grab the area you want to change color of. So I'm gonna quickly grab this area here. And you have two different gradient maps you can use. One is like immediately applying to a certain layer, but I like them more as an additional layer that you can manipulate. So what I mean with that is, if you are on the layer panel, you click to the right, you say new correction layer, and you say gradient map. And this, you now have a layer mask that alters the color of your illustration without altering the illustration itself, which is really neat. If you can see, there are a lot of palettes you can choose from to change colors. I personally, if you look at this sidebar, I personally don't like it if it has too many points, especially because, as you saw, my value range is like this big. So I don't need these deep darks. You can pull them out and they disappear from the bar. And usually I have only two to start with, because I need to have a shadow color and a light color at first. So for example, this is like brown, but let's see if we can make it more pink color, for example. So you have this as the dark, and then here you can like pink, like a dusty pink. Perhaps this one needs to be slightly darker. Yeah, and now you have like a orangey, peachy color. You can play around with this and completely change all the colors you need. And once you have a setup you like and you would probably want to use more often, you can press this button and save the gradient, like dusty pink. Give it a name, okay, and it's added to the bottom, and you can immediately apply all the colors you ever made. And the reason why I've chosen for a layer like this is because right now I can grab the eraser and be like, no, I don't want it here. I want it gradate like this, for example. Or grab the airbrush, makes it a little easier. Or you want it, sorry. So, and you want it to be completely covering her whole hair, for example. And it's such a quick filter you can alter, and you don't have to do anything about your original illustration. So let's say, okay, this is the color I want, but what if it's only at the bottom part? So you can grab your eraser and you can go like this, take this away, And now you have a way different setup. You're like, oh, that's cool. That's cool. Maybe you can have like those out of fashion ombres from like 2016. And you can still change the colors afterwards. So if you click this one, double click it, it opens the gradient map again, and you can go to a different color and be like, no, I want the blue instead. And you can just still alter all these colors right after you've painted it. And you can do this with any element in the illustration, her hair, her shirt. And that's exactly what I did to just rearrange the colors into a better look. So these were the alterations I made. And the left one was the original, except her shirt was already changed to pink. And I went with this one, the more blonde look instead of the ginger look, because it fits it more harmonious in the background that I've chosen, the pink, purple, white background. It just fitted better. So I went in that direction. And yeah, so this is the results I had after that session. I had, of course, had to get feedback again here and there in between as well. The Clip Studio Paint has never seen these variations, by the way. This is just for me, just to check if I can make it better. I mean, I had this blue one in here, and I really love the blue one personally. However, it would be silly to choose it because they denied the blue version at the beginning of the commission. So to now jump into blue again would like be weird, but I still wanted to see what it looked like. You know, it's just checking colors. They take like 30 seconds to make, so it's not too much time lost there. And this is the final result I went forward with. After that, a lot of things happened and a lot of rendering happened. And now quickly, I want to talk a little bit about rendering because to me, it's a word that is thrown around a lot and it has gotten a few different meanings in my opinion. I think that most people think that rendering is a means of trying to make something look realistic. But to me, that's not necessarily the case because you can, to me, it's more furthering along an image in the style that you have chosen. So for me, it doesn't necessarily mean that I wanted to make realistic hair. It just meant that I wanted to settle on a style that would fit the illustration and work towards that style. So when I say rendering, I just mean I'm going through the phase of making it look like I envisioned it to look. So that doesn't mean that all the hair needs to look like completely realistic. I hope that's, I hope you understand what I'm trying to say. To me, it just has a bit of a different meaning. And so, okay, once I was in this file, I did change a few things. Like, for example, I cut up her hair because I wanted to be able to alter the back of her hair since it's a little further back from her whole body. And I wanted to make that look stronger. So if there's like an in-between line, like you can see, I don't know why my airbrushes aren't working. It's okay, sorry. And you can grab like a light, like orangey color and paint behind these layers. And I like to do that like really subtly, have a gradation happening here. You can make it as strong or not strong as possible, as you wish. I just did it quickly to emphasize that there's space there and it's not all stuck to her neck in any way. Then I had all these light layers on separate layers again, because like I said, I prefer working that way. And this way I can still alter the colors if I want to. I can also quickly just select, if you press Control and click on a layer, you can select exactly what's on that layer. So if you need to quickly alter your lines, but they're all on separate layers, you click Control Shift. You can select all the line layers you have in its completeness, start altering them that way. It's just quickly being able to select and make adjustments on different layer than the light layers itself. Like right now, all light layers are off, but I still have the selection, so I can start painting in with different colors and do something completely different with it. it gives me that versatility. And if all these light layers were merged into the character, I would not have the opportunity to quickly grab those lights and change them completely in a different color, for example. I might be speaking too fast. I'm sorry. Trying not to be nervous. Afterwards, oh yeah. I wanted to quickly talk about the background. I did merge at some point quite so many things, so I'm really sorry for that I cannot show you all the process, but I can still walk you through it, because all these background grassy bits are just layers of the little plant I showed you in the beginning. I can just do it again quickly. Grab the fill lasso and make like a stem of leaves, like really quickly, that I can work with. Oh, why did it? Oh, it's clipped. I'm sorry. Unclip now, thank you. Then I lock this layer, the alpha lock this layer, and I can start painting in it. Let me turn all these on. I can see the colors. Okay, let me make it green. Okay, it's a bit too vibrantly green. Let me grab a different for this. Oh, that's something I completely forgot to say at the beginning, but I actually started painting in Clip Studio Paint just for this commission. I hadn't painted in Clip Studio Paint before that, so I still am quite noobish in a lot of the features of Clip Studio Paint. So if you have way deeper questions about any of the features, I might not be the right person to answer those, because I'm still learning myself. I've just worked the program in a way so I can use it as I'm used to using it. So I'm apologies for that. If in case you wanted an in-depth look into some of the features, I can't give you that, unfortunately. And so I make the lights, or I make like simple shading of the leaves. So it's something pretty basic, I guess. And then once you have that, you can again move it into a background area and be like, okay, I want it up here. I think that seems nice. You can also, what I did at some point is blur the image into the background, because if something is blurred, it looks like the camera can't pick it up, its sharpness up. So it gives you the idea as if it's a snapshot taken of the girl, and it also is additionally works well to get the girl in focus more. So you want people to focus on the face of the girl and not on the background. So if you blur it, I think you can do that here, filter, blur. And I like motion blur a lot, a little better than, oh wait, sorry, it's locked, I think. Yeah, sorry. You have to unlock the layer to be able to blur it. Otherwise, it doesn't blur beyond the locked layer feature. I keep forgetting. Blur. In motion blur, this is what that looks like. I really prefer this one over Gaussian blur because it just blurs slightly more interesting. It's just my opinion. And of course, when something is in the background, it isn't usually very saturated. So if it feels like it's a bit too the samey color darkness as the girl herself, we can make a new layer. And I grab an airbrush, make it quite big, pick the color of the background you already have decided, and just glaze over it slightly, just to push it back just a bit into the background, make it as if it's very far away instead of. And once you have that, you can you can move it again to the position you want and start playing. Make a few, duplicate a few, rotate a few, and see where you can place them to get a very natural looking grassy area. You don't have to draw these out at first. You can immediately start with the lasso tool and block out the shapes in color instead. I prefer that a lot because I cannot see if something looks good yet with just the lines. I need to see the colors. So I hope that was helpful to see how I made the background at least. And then, of course, you have the front as well. I basically did the exact same thing with the foreground. And I only blurred these like most outer parts as if it's like looking in between like two grassy bits that are not in focus, then it becomes focused and later on unfocused again. And for the flowers, I didn't know how to paint flowers. I don't paint flowers as much, so I'm not going to pretend I did. So I started looking up references of the flowers I wanted to implement. And it's again okay to take a moment and look up the references of an item you are not capable of drawing or painting correctly yet. Why give yourself the headache of painting something out of your mind when there's readily available references you can work with? And aside from that, if you have to make a commission, and inside of the commission, like 80% of it is comfort zone, but 20% of it is like something you could learn from, something new. Why would you not take the moment to really take a little bit of extra time for that 20% to up your skill level and start painting that one thing that you can't do yet? With like some studies, you might even just grab some roses, start painting them outside of the illustration in itself, just do some sketches of them, just some studies of them. And once you get a bit of a feeling, okay, I think I can do this, then you go back to the illustration, paint those roses. It's done. You send the illustration. You get paid to have done a study. It's quite nice actually. So take that moment to learn something from it and not run away from, oh, I can do that. It's fine to do that in between. Okay, so once I had that set up, this is like the no effects variant of it. I did add some sort of, okay, let me just grab those layers, because it's a way for me to just distance the layers in between with some atmospheric perspective, I guess. It's again grabbing a bigger layer, color pick, grabbing a bigger brush, sorry, color pick some of the colors and then start painting in between to separate the layers. You can also do that in between the girl and the background again to separate those more. And if it's especially nice if you want to make something like look really misty or something. If it's a like it's more what's a very early morning called dawn? No, I don't. English is failing me. It doesn't matter. You you get what I'm trying to say. It can look really pretty. It's a nice effect in between layers. That's why I keep the front, the middle, and the background in separate layers, so I can always start adding these effects in between to give it that dreamy like aesthetic. And during painting, I always noticed, especially if it's like extremely painterly style, that's free flow, your colors will start to muddy a bit, and that's okay. The colors you start out with are usually very bright, but once you start blending them together, they gray out a little and get a little muddy. So I always do some correcting here and there with, for example, an overlay layer. This is, as you can see, a very orange layer. I just reduce the opacity of it a little, just to bring back that more sunsetty color that I lost. It's very subtle, I'm pretty sure, but it makes a difference to just bring it back again. And it's an additional layer that you don't have to touch your original illustration at all. It's just an edit. So once I was at this part, let's see, I hope I did not skim over anything. No, okay. This is the result I had back then at this moment. I got feedback again from Clip Studio Paint, and the feedback was getting smaller. And with that, I mean, I'll show you. They asked me like to move her eye a little bit. They asked me to add slight darkness around her face, and they asked me to change the light of her nose. And they seem pretty nitpicky, but I'm always happy when I get these small adjustments, because it means that the rest of the painting is perfect in their eyes, right? So they're happy where it's going. It's just these slight small changes they would like to see, and to me it says, okay, they're happy with what it looks like right now. That's a good sign. Glad that is a thing. Again, I did some post editing, post illustration editing. I'll show you what type of editing I did. First, I thought the foreground was a little bit too like light. And so I darkened it with a multiply layer. Multiply and overlay are my favorite blending mode layers. Overlay for color popping and multiply for darkening. If you let's see, multiply, I just grabbed usually I grab a bluish, a grayish blue color for any shadows I'm gonna make, at least if the shadows are gonna be blue and the lights are gonna be warm in tone. And make these a little dark. So it sort of frames a bit neater around her face. Once I had that, I used an overlay layer to make her shirt, the bottom part, all a bit pinker, like the rose really started popping because of this color. Like, just to explain why I do this afterwards instead of in between altering the illustration itself, is because right now I can be really selective of what areas I want to make pop. Like everything in itself is a bit subdued, but what if I wanted to make her eyes like really glowy right now? Like this is the only reason why her eyes look really glowy and magically right now is because the rest doesn't. If the rest doesn't isn't too saturated, then the saturated part will pop like extremely well. So if you keep your values in check throughout the whole illustration part, and later on start thinking, okay, where do I really want those colors to start popping? And this I'm like screwing with her. I'm sorry, but you can be very decisive of what areas you would love to bring forward way more, and that it actually grabs your attention instead of the whole piece being one big saturated illustration. Unless that's your style choice, of course. I don't want to style shame anyone. So that's a thing I did with the atmosphere. Yeah, I made a slight addition to the foreground's values. I thought it was a little too dark. It was taking away from the girl again. So I went over there with some light blue. And then some extras. I didn't know what I wanted to do for on the side of her headphones. I had like a really weird flower sketch at the beginning because I didn't know what I wanted yet with that. But I decided I'll just go for the symbol. That seemed like really cute, and it's pretty easy to set up. I will grab again the lasso, the fill lasso. It's really my favorite feature. Can you see it? And let's see, let's make a color and an outline of general logo. I'm so sorry, I'm butchering it. So you have the logo right here. And let's see, you can, I think, if I select it, you can duplicate the image, duplicate layer. I've attached it to this bar for easier access. And you grab the underlayer. I believe if you click Control, and then nudge, you can nudge something to the side, slight bit. And then you darken. Oh, wrong one. So, yes. I pressed Control L to open level correction, by the way. I've attached all kinds of short keys to alters. I don't like clicking too many directions to get somewhere. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Oh yeah, it's working, okay. So right now it sort of looks like it's 3D, like really quickly setup of 3D. And now you can start painting in the colors that you wanted to paint. Like these are the colors I chose. Let's give them the color, give them the slight gradation, and you can free transform this. Oh, you can't do them at the same time, I'm afraid. So let me show you. Duplicate layer. If you right click and you do free transform, you can move something in perspective, which I used for this for the headphone piece. I duplicate the layer again. Or I should have done this step beforehand. Sorry. Then Lock the layer. Make it darker again, whatever color. And that's how I quickly set up this the side piece of the headphone, actually, like the logo. Sorry, couldn't get the name right. And I added small flowers to her hair because I thought it was cute. Very last minute idea that I implemented. And in the end, once I had all this, again, I went over it with some color correction, like make it a little more orangey in color. And I was asked to also add some light on this area because they were missing it from the sketch that I sent out earlier. So I added those lighter areas, and it's getting close to actually, this is the finished result that I had. Like the last things I probably did was a sharpen over the overall image. Because the sharpen feature, like when you start painting, it starts to sort of blur some of the blendings because it just happens naturally when you start blending, everything blurs out quite a bit. So giving it a sharpen over the final image, once everything is like merged into one image, that usually works to bring that back up. And now that I am done, I kind of want to quickly talk about a tip I have for people who are like me, who had problems with over rendering your image. Because when do you actually know when your illustration is finished and when is that little detail too much? That's the question of the century. And a tip I could give you to do that is you have to find where you are going to start to go wrong. So what you can do is you have your image and all the layers attached to that image, place it in a group inside your layer setup, make a group of it, start painting in it. And once you have done about 15 minutes or 20 minutes at most of painting, depending on how slow or fast you are, duplicate that layer, don't look at it anymore, and start working in the second one. Once you're in the second one, you paint a couple minutes, 15 minutes again, and duplicate again and again and again until you are in group 12. You look at your image and you're like, whoa, I did something bad. It's starting to look pretty shitty. And I think I over-rendered, but how? Where did it happen? But now you can just slowly click off all the groups you've had, go back a few steps in time, and to see where it started to go wrong. What are your bad habits? Where was it the hair? Did you start to make your brush like really small, and did you start paint like really useless piece of hair, or did you really make the shine of the metal like too crisp, and was it better like 3 steps ago? Once you can physically see where you're going wrong, it gives you an idea of what not to do anymore. So let's say step 7 was like the perfect balance of your illustration, and from step 8 to 12 was pretty bad steps you've taken, but now you know that those are bad steps, so you can go back to step 7 and either save that one as your finished result, but apparently that's the best one you've made up until now, or you go further again with step 7 and try to avoid the mistakes you've made from step 8 to 12 and see if you can do it differently so it doesn't become the over-rendered mess it was in step 12. So it's sort of battling your own bad habits because you usually don't know where things are going wrong first. So first you got to find out where things go wrong and hopefully correct yourself on the way. That's what helped a lot for me. And now I knew that this image is finished and I didn't have to think about, oh, do I have to add a little bit more hair here? Or do I have to add some light here? It's done, it's clear, and I'm happy with it. And Clip Studio Paint was happy with it. So that was the final render tip I wanted to give you guys. And then, yeah, that's the end result of the illustration. I hope it was. Oh, hi. Sorry.
Hi. Do you want to go into questions or do you want to finish up? I feel like.
No, sure. We can go into questions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we've definitely gotten a lot of questions. And also a lot of comments about how it was very interesting to see your complete flow of how you did the illustrations. I think that's a look that not a lot of people get usually. I mean, I didn't even get it, and we worked together on the illustration.
Yeah, exactly. You know nothing, girl.
I know nothing. Yeah. We really liked your style, which is why we contacted you. So, how did you find your own style for your characters?
Oh, I'll find my own style. Well, style is something I used to be really obsessed about, and I think that's really normal for young artists to be like, I need my own style, my own name, and everything. Otherwise, how am I gonna like show people my originality and stuff? But my style, if I started to develop more once I stopped thinking about style as much, I had a very natural. I mean, I grew up with manga and anime. Let's get that out of the way. And I did a lot of manga drawings at the beginning. And right when I went into art school, I was suddenly faced with a lot of realistic work I had to do. I had to paint like really unflattering bodies of people naked and stuff, and had to learn what real anatomy of real humans look like. And at some point, I started to automatically combine the two. So what appealed the most to me about realism was lighting and color and mood, and about manga was the proportions and the cheerfulness of it. So I combined these two, and it evolved into the style that I have now. I think it's a pretty common style development for a lot of people who are at least have some interest in the manga and anime medium. Like many people can feel themselves in that direction.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's and of course, if there were moments in where it's like, okay, I really don't like this certain part about my style, I would be very purposefully studying another artist, for example. I always rotate between the OG artist. Oh yeah, this one is I'm gonna study them, and then after a few months, I move on to another artist, and I take away snippets of things I like about them and merge them into my own work, and it evolves over time into your own original iteration of things.
You said you really like drawing girls, and now you're working for games and stuff. How do you get yourself to draw things you're not super comfortable with?
Oh, it's not really hard per se, or I mean, I don't have to think about having to draw harder things. I most often see it as a challenge. If someone asks me, hey, we have, as long as it's sort of in the realm of comfort zone, like they ask me for a mobile game, I get asked to make concept designs for characters, but they give me the girls to do. But then there's this zombie-like skeleton magical girl, and I'm like, okay, I like girls, but the rest of it's all out of my comfort zone. But at least the core of it is within comfort zone, and that's very helpful for if you're doing studies. Don't study everything at once. If you're going to study hair and you're already pretty good at drawing girls, don't try to draw a guy and study hair with that. It's just make it yourself easier so you can actually focus on the thing that you have to learn, basically.
What's your favorite part of drawing?
Oh,
Things and process.
I think the very beginning parts, like this, I like a lot because it's so free flow. I don't have to think about any technicalities yet. I just have to think about what looks pretty and what's going to bring over the mood that I want to convey. And then I like the last parts a lot, in where everything seems to fall into place, and I just have to make some alterations, and then I can just look at the painting and be like, okay, it's done. It's done. I usually don't like my painting right at the end of an illustration. I start to appreciate it again after a few weeks when I open it again. And like, oh, I drew that. Oh, okay, that's pretty cool. So right after a couple of hours of painting, I don't like my result, but it always comes back at some point.
Yeah. As a freelance artist, what does your schedule usually look like?
I'm a night owl, so I get up pretty late. Like I think I start at around 9 or 10 in the morning, because I need my moment in the morning like I need to stare into space for an hour before I can function. And I usually work a couple more hours in the evening, sometimes way too many hours.
Mm.
Like it goes into night hours, because I feel like I have to make up for my slow morning. And then what happens? I make another slow morning because I went to bed very late. It's a bit of a bad habit, but it's kept up for a long time now, and I can keep it up since I'm usually quite woke in the evening to paint.
What have been some of your ups and downs as a freelance artist?
Ups and downs. At the beginning, I was really worried about never being able to get work for my work because there was talked. It was really, talked to me from my art school that this type of illustration work is never gonna work out. Like getting money from drawing cute manga-like girls is out of the question. That's not real art, and that's really hurt me. Hurt my confidence to seek out work in the beginning years. And whenever I had work in that direction, it's like, yeah, this is a one-off thing. Nobody likes this stuff. It's not real art. It's just a quick thing. And I kept believing that for a long while. And I believe that's like one of the biggest downs I had during, like, I needed to build up confidence after 4 years of hearing that your style is basically worthless. But I've gained confidence, and I think painting illustration for Clip Studio Paint in the most girly, cheerful style I can imagine, and it being like a real job and being appreciated like this has to be a high in that case. So.
So did you just keep painting, or you like build a portfolio and then you found work through that? Do you have any tips for beginners?
Oh yeah. I don't like supporting social media as much, but it is unfortunately true that keeping up your social media really helps to get clients, spread your work, but especially draw exactly what you would like to get work for. So don't start altering yourself. Just like if there's a game that you don't necessarily like the style of, but you think, oh, but they probably give you a lot of work. So I'll start to draw dragons because that's cool and that's what they want. But it's not your thing, then you might get the job and then you have to draw something you don't like at all. So better take a little longer and actually draw the things you really love to draw and get eventual jobs because of that. So keep that up. That would be the best.
Yeah. As a small aside, it always helps clients to know what you're working with as well.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
the programs you know, like I think ArtStation has the feature that shows what software you're using. So that's also, if you don't have an ArtStation, it's very helpful if you write it somewhere. So just as a small aside. But that's why
exactly.
you also have your really nice ArtStation page where people can look at your work and find you as an artist, which is very helpful.
Yeah, it's a combination because unlike popular belief, my Instagram is the most followed platform, but it's the place I get the least work. So because it's not the audience that necessarily, like, it's not companies on there searching for artists. Basically, that's usually through Twitter or ArtStation or general email. I even got some LinkedIn messages like, "Hey, can you work?" Like, whoa, I haven't updated LinkedIn in like 2 years. How did you find me? So it's not always follower equation is like a lot of work. That's not it at all. So I wouldn't focus too much on the followers count. Just spreading your work out over many different platforms with different purposes helps you to hit all of those marks, and one of them is going to land and give you a gig for sure.
We've worked on this illustration for quite a while. I think over, I don't know, like a couple of weeks total, like time, like checking and the idea finding and everything.
Yeah.
On your personal illustration, how long does that usually take you?
Oh, personal is pretty fast. Okay, let me grab some of my personal work I had set up here. Okay, so like this sketchy like work on the top ones, they take about half a day to make because I have a very clear direction I wanted to go with again. And these are studies, by the way, on the left. So I had references to work with. The colors I tweaked a little bit, but I had a general direction of where I wanted to go. So that speeds up the progress like by a lot. And for this one, on the bottom one, I didn't have reference. I just had a mood, an idea, and I really wanted to have fun with this painting. So I didn't. It took way longer than if I were to do some of the studies I did before. And yeah, on and off as well. Like some days you wouldn't open an illustration for 2 days because it's just not working out. And then you open it again after those days or after a break. You're like, okay, I know what direction I'm gonna take. I'm gonna alter it this way. And it's sort of less timed out illustration. It's more for me to have fun with, except not getting the end results necessarily. So it depends on your approach, I believe. Even for personal work, it says different approaches.
Do you sometimes just give up on work, like something you started and
like
you
pretty
just
much
hate everything?
Yes, there was an illustration once, I think, that I restarted after like a year of the initial sketch, and I was really not liking it. And after a year, I just opened it, and everything fit into place. I was like, whoa, now I know how to do this because I just did studies in that, and I got feedback on this. So, and all of a sudden, it went fine because there's been a year between that sketch that I couldn't do back then, but now I can because I've grown as an artist. But there also have been many scraped ideas. I think I post about 10 to 20% of the work I make on social media. The rest are rambly doodles, warm up sketches that never see the light of day because they're warm up for a reason. So yeah, like that.
Yeah. Are you the type to listen to music, or do you need a quiet room to work?
It depends. If it's like driving a car. If you have to focus on finding a parking spot, I don't want to hear music. But if I'm just driving like long drives, I can listen to music fine. So it's the same with art. If something is going wrong, I sit up, like put my hair in a ponytail, and like, okay, I gotta really focus on this part. It's not working. Music off. I gotta focus. It's not, especially after like 4 times making the same mistake. Like, okay, now every distraction needs to go. I need to focus on this thing. And once it's done, okay, I can relax again. I can start painting, put on music again. So it's a moment when I put on music.
I think that's the first time that I heard that kind of comparison with a car and driving and parking. That's really nice.
All right.
Do you have anything you really, really don't like drawing?
But I don't like drawing, like realism, like extreme realism. Yeah, it's something I wanted to achieve at some point. Like it's a study thing. You would like to be able to render out the most amazingly realistic metal plates or face structure, or we all had the pores in face of our art, and I really wanted to get to that level. And once I got there, I found it to be really boring, and so I started to take steps back and develop more of a style. And your style can also be choosing not to render something or not to paint in those areas. And that's so it became simple. My art became simpler over time after being able to do the realistic thing. So once someone asks me right now, like, "Can you paint this really realistic, fantasy-like character?" It's not my favorite thing anymore to do. No.
Okay. All right. I think that's about all the questions we can get to right now. We're a little bit over the hour already. That was a very fast session. We learned a lot, I think. So thank you very much for explaining all your steps. Can you show the cat again, though?
Can I show the cat? Of course I can show the cat. Very important.
Yeah, I think we haven't seen it today, so.
So it needs to be the end of the session for sure.
Let's do that.
Good. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Yeah. Onur, you want to take over?
Yes, of course. Thank you so much. And thank you, Ilse. That was really fun and inspiring. Even though I'm not a creator myself, it really gave me some motivation to try out some things, just to give it a go. So thank you so much. Now let me share my screen and go through the final closing slides. Please let me know if you can see.
Yes.
All right, perfect. Well,
Thank you all for being here.
thank you all again for joining us. Please do check and follow us on social media at Wacom and at Clip Studio Official. And you can always tag us, both Wacom and Clip Studio Official, if you have some cool art that you are planning to share in the following days, and also your comments and feedback about the event. And don't forget to follow Ilse on social media too. On Instagram, her handle is @iruse, and on Twitter is name and surname @Ilse Harting. As I mentioned at the beginning of the session, we have some exclusive offers for you under our e-store.wacom.com/comicsweek. And also next week, when you receive the follow-up email in your inbox, you will find the survey link to get a chance to win one of the 100 Clip Studio Paint Pro licenses. Also next week, the session's recording will be uploaded on YouTube. So otherwise of all of this, that's all from us. Once again, thank you all. A big thank you to Ilse for the brilliant presentation. And
No problem.
hope to see you all in the next session coming up at 2 p.m. with Nadia animating comic panels in Clip Studio Paint. Until then, see you all and bye-bye.